That will help if I unmuted myself. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Empowerment Moment with yours truly, Dr. G. I am the founder and executive director of My Goal and Haven International. And for 18 years, oh my gosh, and it's like a whole adult. It's a whole almost 2 decades. We have partnered with parents with individuals diagnosed with autism and other intellectual disabilities. We exist to support families. We create connections and we provide support and resources. And each month, since COVID, at least 6 years, been privileged to really host this event called Empowerment Moment. It's really an inspiration from God. I'm a woman of faith, so I'm here to just share my faith and here to share information, here to create a connections. And the goal here is that if I'm reflecting on something or I'm in conversation with someone or about an issue or a thought or something that I think may be pertinent, I like to come on here and make that the topic, right? So for 6 years since COVID, we pivoted into, and we've stayed on this pivot mode, where we really, it's all about empowering families, empowering individuals. Whether you have a special needs one or not, maybe wherever you are on your journey, I invite you to come in and just listen, right? So I share my thoughts, my reflections, information, and the goal here is that it makes you move. It makes you just want to say, okay, you know what? I got to do something different. I got to be empowered. I got to take an action. So I am starting this four-part series, and it really came out of a conversation I was having with someone over the weekend. And of course, I had to tag her and say, you're it. You're coming on board with me. So we're going to be sharing a little bit about that. And so it's a four-part series that I'm calling Becoming the Road to Becoming the Parent Advocate. The road to becoming a parent advocate. So this is just really, really, really intended to engage us in conversation. And so for the next few months, that's what we're going to be talking about. And so this particular topic is also very near and dear to my heart because it's all personal. It's everything that I've walked in, I'm walking in, continue to walk in. And no matter how much you think you have it figured out, somebody will step on the toe and the first reaction is always that, I have to get you, whether it's at work, wherever it is. And one has to, the advocacy things kicks in. And I have to really be like, so yeah, some say intuition, but for me, it's the Holy Spirit. He just will say, Genevieve, calm down, get it together. You don't have to overreact, right? So the moment, but that started at some point. That impression to respond or to do something about it started somewhere. And for me, it was at the point of the diagnosis. For some people, it may be at a different piece, right? It maybe for some people, it was at that meeting, right? Somebody says something that just like, or maybe it's the quiet realization that your child's path may look different, but there is that moment. There is that key moment that it turns on, and it may be where the moment where you just felt so overwhelmed. Well, guess what? If all these scenarios that I just described, if any of it applies to you, guess what? You're not alone. You are not alone. And so we're going to have an honest conversation today. And what I will say to you is that when you're on this journey, there is no manual. Huh? Have you noticed? Just when you thought you figured it out, there is something that changes along the journey. All of a sudden, you're expected to understand, like you get on this journey, they give you this diagnosis, nobody wants it, nobody should have it, nobody should take it. But here you are. You're supposed to learn medical terminology. You're supposed to learn about the education system. You're supposed to know everything about therapies, your rights, insurance. So if you find me a little feisty, it's because sometimes you're just coming through something and you're like, but this is just the basic right. Like, this is just the basic human right. Why do I have to fight for the basic human rights? Why? Why? And so, at one point at a time or the other, because you are the parent and God is giving you that title of parent, you got to do what you got to do, right? And that's part of our job is to really love our child, our loved one, our young adult. Mine is a young adult now. My goodness, he's a quarter of a century old almost. And then you still have to show up every day. But the reality is that when you're going through that journey, you have moments where you are overwhelmed, where you can say, and I honestly have those moments too where I just don't know what to ask, right? I just don't know. I don't want to say the wrong thing. I don't want to, I don't want to, what if I push too hard? Like that tension of like, I know what to say, but I might say not quite. Or what if I didn't push hard enough? Or you leave that meeting and you're like, oh man, I wish I had just said X, Y, and Z. I don't know if this applies to anybody, but we're going to be having a conversation. If you've been in that place where what I'm saying resonates, it really, really, really resonates with you. You're in for a treat because I invited an amazing woman. Um, Her name is Nodetty. She is someone who I have such high regards and respect for. And I say that just because I'm watching her raise her children, growing, and I am just in awe of who she's becoming, what God is doing in her. And I sent her a text and I said, I need you to come on this program. And I know she had other things going on that she probably rearranged it because she knew I asked her and she made it happen. And that's because she's taken on a role that this is what this is all about. When you go to the place where and I will say that particularly this particular topic today, I called it from being overwhelmed to ownership, from being overwhelmed to ownership, stepping into your role as the parent advocate. Going from that place where you're just overwhelmed to now you're like, no, I gotta own this thing and I gotta do more. And so she is now the co-founder of an amazing company called At Peace Care. And I'm going to have her share a little bit about that. And if I'm gushing, that's because I am super, super, super proud of what God is doing in her life. And so that is the reason why when I thought about this topic, I said, you know what? She has to be the one of the first people that I pull on there. Obviously, I'm going to pull in other parents and other people, but that's because it's so, so, so crucial and so important. So, Nodetty, thank you for saying yes. Thank you for being here today to through your couple of questions that I want to have as a dialogue. But before we get in there, I just want you to just, tell us a little bit about yourself and just whatever aspect of your journey you want to share. And just, yeah, just the floor is yours.
Sure. My name is Nodetty Abitogun. I am a mom of two kids. I'm a wife. This I've known Dr. G for probably 15 years. I literally grew up in front of Dr. G, if you wanna if you wanna really be real, right? Um, this journey, I give her credit a lot. Like, this journey has been a very interesting journey aspect of my life. You know, when I got the diagnosis for my children, I was numb. You
Hmm.
know, I and numb is the right word, and I'm going to say why numb was is the right word for me. Just a little bit about my background. I am a middle child, but I've been seen as the oldest all my life. I have an older brother who's also went through different diagnoses, but as I've gotten older and been around him and understanding the spectrum, I can now honestly say my brother had the spectrum has autism. Um, so you can imagine growing up being the middle child, the first girl, to having an older brother who didn't really start speaking till he was 5. And now he's actually about to be 43 this year, and he speaks very well. He's a very intelligent guy. You can imagine the dynamic of growing up and growing up fast.
Hmm.
Understanding, like, as I talk to you right now, if something happens, I am the first person they will call. So I have been somewhat prepared in a sense of this journey per se, but it's always different, right? Now you're going from sibling to now your own children. Um, so this experience, I can say, has birthed a baby of ours, which is at Peace Care. At Peace Care ABA, this is our own ABA agency where we provide ABA services to children on the spectrum. We
Can
currently
you tell us what ABA is? You
are.
know
Oh God, applied behavioral analysis. So what it does is it's pretty much evidence based approach for children, teaching them social skills. Really, a lot of redirection is what I see as. A lot of kids really have difficulties with sensories, even textures of different things, and I feel like ABA kind of helps them figure things out little by little, and they meet you at your point of needs, right? So it's not like I'm not going to teach a child money if they don't know nothing about money. I'm going to meet them to where they are. I'm going to do a lot of redirection. I'm going to do a lot of social skills, independent skills. So that's our gear towards ABA, providing services for children that we are providing for currently, actually. We started this business a year ago. It is work. I actually see it from a different lens of things. Um, and I'm going to say I'm giving parents grace.
that.
And I realize that not all parents are equipped the same.
Mm,
Sometimes when they receive diagnosis, some digest it better than others. Some are, you know what, I got this diagnosis, I gotta act on it ASAP. And then you have some that is literally going through the process of
mm,
grief.
mm,
And that grief is more like, I'm grieving what I thought my child was supposed to be. And sometimes it's denial of, oh, he's fine, I'm going to give it some more time. And, time now turns into a year, and then 3 years. And then now, sometimes you have a little amount of time to really get in as much as possible, the resources. So I want to say this business has opened my eyes and
mm,
really see, you know, how I can give parents grace, really just give them the benefit of the doubt, understanding that not all are going through this process the same.
mm,
And, and there are times I do follow up. Like I will follow up and say, okay, so, are you gonna sign up? You know, what is it? What questions do you have? I know my husband when when they call, he's so quick to just say, "Oh, my wife would, you know, advocate for you. Whatever you need, questions you have, he's always putting me in the forefront when it comes to that." And I think it's just based off my experience with my own children.
mm,
Um, I can boldly say my kids' schools know who I am. They know who my husband are. They know us very well. And you brought up a point that in the beginning where you stated, sometimes I'll be in a meeting and I forgot what to say. I shouldn't say it. Guess what I'll do? I'll send an email right after that meeting because that is me. And one thing I can say is, and one thing I would pretty much give an encouragement to parents, I know before we get to questions, but I'll say this: process it the best way you can, but then pull your bootstraps up.
mm,
Because at the end of the day, after God, you all your kids got. And that's how I see it. Like at the end of the day, I do believe God is keeping us, God is protecting us. But I look at these children and I see that these children are dependent on
mm,
Shola and I. And if I have to knock down doors, if I have to go through the mud, if I have to go through the water for them, just to get them resources and do what I have to do, then I will do it. That doesn't mean that I'm not tired. That doesn't mean that I'm not fatigued. That doesn't mean that I'm not discouraged. That doesn't mean that I don't get weary. But being a Christian and understanding that, and it's so crazy because I've been I know we're not talking Bible, but but I have been meditating on Lamentations 3 verse 37. And when I say I have now accepted that verse, and it's I'm just going to summarize, pretty much saying that who can speak and it happened
Mm,
without the Lord Almighty actually saying it for it to happen.
mm,
And I don't I don't walk by my kids label. I treat them the same. I discipline the same. My husband and I, we treat, they ride scooters, they go outside, they don't get things if they don't request it. Like, I treat them how I want to see them succeed.
that's right.
And I think a lot of parents, again, the grace comes, right? A lot of parents just doesn't know what to do.
Mm,
This is uncharted territory. But I do believe that once you go through the process, go through the grief, go through the water, go through the mud, you just have to keep going through the journey. Not all journeys the same. So that's my piece on that.
that's amazing. I'm so grateful that you shared. And yeah, you're a woman of faith, you're Christian, so you have to share how faith plays a very important part of you able to get up and put, like you said, put your bootstraps on. I think we can also not forget, and I think your better your other half, I was gonna say better half, I always throw that out there. If it's the woman, I'll say that's him. Um, is also here to support. And I think is what's crucial about what you just shared is the fact of partnership. And
Mm-hmm.
you're blessed that, you're married and the two of you have journeyed and continue to journey together as that. And that to me is a segue away from what we're here to talk about, but I wanted to highlight that that's a very important part of this journey is that as couples, if you are just gotten a diagnosis, please do your very best to be on the same page because the last thing you want is to be fighting each other when you're
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be fighting for your child.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, you will be fighting for your child because the world is not just going to hand it over to you just like that. So you mentioned your husband, Charlotte, and he's here. And so I just want to say thank you for encouraging Nodetty and pushing her forward um, to get to this step. And really kudos to you for taking that step. Now, before we get into a little bit of some of the questions that I wanted us to address about advocacy, you didn't get into this as a professional because that's not what you went to school for. So can you just
Yeah.
comment a little bit about that? Because I think this just highlight the importance of pivoting,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because we go into
Mm-hmm.
something one way and because something happens. So you want to share a little bit about your background. You don't have to
Yeah.
mention companies or anything like that, but
Okay, so I studied biology. I have a bachelor's in biology. I have a master's in public health. I'm actually a clinical trial manager, so I do I just oversee clinical trials for different studies for different therapeutic areas. So yes, this is not my profession at all.
But
Um,
but clearly it just tells you that you're a very smart individual and therefore you can pivot within that.
correct.
And there may be somebody listening out there who is also inspired by what you're doing. And so I always like to just use every information that we can to activate somebody to move. Your biggest experience is your children
Correct.
and your own personal journey.
Yes.
So while that may not have been what you were trained for, because you don't want the people who quote unquote went to school for it to think, oh, I know more. You are
Mhm.
also experienced because you're walking it yourself. Can you
Correct.
comment about what made you guys start at Peace Care? I mean, where you just felt like this is something we want to do.
Well, I'm going to give credit to where credit is due. It's definitely my husband. Shola, I know he's on the call, but it was definitely him. And I'll say this, um, to his credit, he did say that he would not do this business without me. He's like, I need you. I need you to, do this so we can do this together. This is something that I feel like not only um, it will impact us in a great way as a family, but also knowing that we are also impacting children.
Mm,
We're also providing services to children, especially children who, you know, to kind of bluntly put it, like push on the wayside. Wait list is crazy. Medicaid is really tough to get services for. I see it. Um, and it's just eye opening,
Mm.
through our own journey, seeing, like, I can recall being in one of a CST meeting, a child study team meeting. Sorry. Being in a child study team meeting with my kids. And, I remember, I just recall we were saying to them that, oh, yeah, our son gets, 25 hours a week of ABA and OT. And they were stunned. They
Mm.
immediately said, oh, how? They immediately thought we were on Medicaid, but that's not the point. But the point just shows to me that, wow, like there are a lot of kids that need services and they're just not getting it, or the parents are not aware of the resources
Mm.
for their children, which is really big. I actually, like I said, going through this business has allowed me to really see the demographics of how there's just not enough information given to them
Mm.
when it
Mm.
comes to providing resources. It's like you're stuck on an island and you just don't know what to do. You know what I mean? Like
Mm.
you're just stuck. You have no water, no food. You're,
Mm.
you're trying to, crack coconuts like Survivor,
Mm.
crack coconuts to eat. But, there's if you just know there was a boat on the side of the island
Mm.
to get to resources, you would jump on the boat, but you don't know what to do, you don't know how to paddle. And
Mm.
I think it's just the lack of knowledge. And, even the Bible says, my people perish for the lack of knowledge. And two things: it's either they simply don't know what to do.
Mm.
You either could stay in the I don't know what to do, or you actually try to look
Mm.
to know what to do.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
ask questions.
Mm.
You talk to the CST, even that, talk to CST,
Mm.
talk to pediatricians, talk to friends, go on Facebook groups. I mean, my husband's in all of them. He's in all the Facebook groups, okay? Because you always want to gain
Mm.
knowledge.
Mm.
This is such an uncharted territory, and every kid is different. You have kids who are on the lower side of the spectrum, but it's still hard. And you
Mm.
have the extreme cases, right? So it's just figuring it out and navigating. I don't have it all figured out. I'm still learning every single day. Every single day, I'm getting something different and I'm always learning. And you just have to be open to learning.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And you went from that's why I felt the topic really powerful, right? Went from the place of being overwhelmed. So talk to us
Mhm.
about, you seem so strong. People who know you, even your confidence is exuding through it. Talk to us about the journey, the moment where you just went from being, I called it from being overwhelmed to
Mhm.
ownership. That's why I really thought it's really powerful to for you to kind of speak to how you got where you are now.
Well, I will say that it wasn't easy. Um, I can recall when Matthias was 18 months, I knew something was off. A parent just knows. I remember that moment. I remember talking to his pediatrician, like, this is, yeah, like he's not. And he somewhat, I'll say this, my son somewhat confused us because he was singing and speaking
Mm.
words and knowing numbers. I mean, he knew stuff. He could associate, I mean, he still can. He could associate letters with words. And so we thought, oh, wow, like this is great. We thought this boy was going to talk before he started walking. like,
Mm.
but I just knew something was still off. There was some milestone he just wasn't hitting. And I can remember very vividly telling his pediatrician, and I was concerned, my husband was concerned, and we asked for ABA therapy because, obviously we went down the rabbit hole, going on Google, figuring, because look, I didn't know what it was. Even though, like I said, I have an older brother, I didn't know the term for it. You know
Mm.
what I mean? I still try to figure out what's going on, what's different. And I still remember getting the script, ABA therapy, and then I remember going to the insurance. They're like, no, but you need a diagnosis. And I still recall sitting in JFK, and I'll be blunt with you, we were very numb. My
Mm.
husband and I remember walking out, and it's so funny. I still remember that we wore matching outfits, same color, being supportive. And when we walked out of that hospital, JFK, to get the diagnosis, I remember looking at my husband and was like, we just can't tell anybody. Like, we just have to just be strong as a family together to support, our child. Um, and at that moment, I kid you not, and so I can attest to this. The moment I got home, I called every ABA therapy agency. Literally, the moment I got the diagnosis, I
Wow.
made that call. I Googled, I searched, and I made sure that our child got ABA within 2 to 3 weeks
Wow.
after the diagnosis. Um, Now I understand not every parent is like me. I think for me is knowing I don't let it to define my children. I literally say, look, and that's just literally me and my husband. You made a point having that partnership where you guys are, when it comes to that, you guys may fight on different things, but when it comes to that, you guys are one. Because at the end of the day, and that's something my husband used, because, and I'm gonna be blunt here, I didn't want the diagnosis. Shocker. I did
Mm.
not want it. And I remember my husband telling me at that moment, like, hey, this is not about you. You have to remove yourself from this. This is about making sure our child get what he needs for him to be successful. And I kid you not, I didn't fight about it. I always have something to say, but I did not fight about it. I did not argue about it. And I looked at him and I said, you know what? You're right. You're absolutely right. And the moment I felt like, probably the Holy Spirit was talking to him through, talking to him to talk to me, because I just was like, no, I don't want it. I don't want him to be late. I was thinking all the things. But then I remember, as I said, this is not about you. And
Mm.
I feel like if parents start to see it that way, then I feel like the services will flow. We can't allow our feelings to dictate our children's future.
Mm.
And we have to be able to move ourselves out of the way, go through the process, support through the process, ensuring they get the service they need to be successful. If we didn't do
Mm.
what we did for our children, I don't know what strides they would have taken. Like, they would not be able to take the strides they've taken. Like, our kids' um, comprehension level has exceeded our expectations.
Wow.
They have made strides. Now, granted, they regress. This is the journey. You're gonna have good days, you're gonna have bad days. But overall, when you think about where they started and where they are now,
Mm.
humongous progress.
That's awesome.
And that's something that I can encourage every parent out there. Hold on to these progresses. Always look back from where they started from and where they are today, and keep pushing. Like, I'll tell my kids, good job. All right, now what's next? Let's tackle the next thing. Let's defy the odds. I am going to be, and again, Shaw and I, we are going to be your best supporters ever. We are going to give you the best resources ever. The other day, we did a swimming trial for them, and I signed them up on the spot, twice a week, every month. They are going to swim. They are
Wow.
going to learn. They are going to defy the odds. Every time a homework is coming in, And then they'll sit with it. I'll never forget. Matthias's teacher provided math problems, and I remember giving it to the therapist to help him. Because when they come, they get services. They get ABA services. So when they come, and I remember giving my son's therapist his homework, math homework, and she's like, "Nodetty, what is this? This is easy. He already know this stuff already." So then now I email the teacher and I say, "Hey, this is easy, and I hope you're not giving him easy problems. I hope you're giving him harder. I hope you're always challenging him." And you know what he said to me? He said, "Yes, yes, I'm challenging him." And he said, "Nodetty, thank you
Mm.
for being an advocate for your child. It is such an admiration to see."
Wow.
So you may not think these teachers are not watching you, but they're watching you. And they will always give your best based off your actions.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
They will fight for your child if they see you fighting for your child. They will give 100% if you give 100%. That's why I said my kids' teachers know who we are. They know we don't play. Like,
Well, let's talk about that. That you used the word advocate there. How did you get to this place? What was that moment?
oh man, Dr. G, you know the story. Um, when my son went to kindergarten, you know, I thought, I never thought I would be pushed into a corner before. I didn't know that God was gonna purge us this way. Going to the public school system, my first introduction to public school system. I'll say this: when my son went to the school he went to first kindergarten, that was when he was introduced to public school because he's been in daycare from I want to say 4 or 5 months till he was 4 years old. And throughout daycare, he had ABA therapy with a therapist next to him, even not before, but after COVID, essentially. And when we got to public school, and he had an IEP, met with the study team, um, the transition was tough. It was such. I saw my sweet baby boy changing
Mm.
right in front of me. The sweet, calm, lovable kid had became very aggressive. I'll never forget when they said Matthias kicked someone. And I was so shocked. I'm like, Matthias kicks? Like, I remember putting him in soccer. We were like putting him in soccer and he refused to kick a ball. Like, he actually kicked somebody? Like, we were stunned. And I remember just sitting, and I knew it was a test of intimidation. I remember being on a call. It was me and Shola against 9 people,
Mm.
9 people from the CST team. And I remember being in this meeting, and when they were talking about Matthias, and I think that's what kind of, I didn't cry in front of my husband, but I definitely went into my closet and I definitely shedded a tear. I'm not gonna lie. Even talking about it, I get choked up because I can recall them talking about my son in such a negative light. And I remember my husband literally saying, "Hold on." At the time it was 5. He said, "Hold on, we're talking about a 5-year old that weighs barely 50 pounds. And you guys are saying these things about him." And I think it just clicked, like, man, they don't really care. They don't really care. And sometimes as parents, you think, you know, and I'm not saying everybody. I think the system is broken. It is. I can say it out loud. The system is broken. Teachers are tired. Specialists are tired. There's just not enough resources. They don't know what to do. Honestly, it's a mess. But I just remember at that moment that, you know, something switched and said, no, we have to fight for Matthias. We have to stand strong for Matthias. And like I said in the beginning of this meeting, after God, we are all they have. And I think my husband and I, we think the same way in that aspect. And we're like, we are all they have. And you best believe it. We
Mm.
will not allow you guys to one up us. You will not one up us when it comes to these kids. Maybe for anything else, we don't care. But these kids, oh no, 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 no. Like we will never, you know, with everything we have, we will never allow them to one up us. We are always asking questions. And I think what really was a pivotal moment was when we got CPS called on us after trials and trials of issues, where we were told to be picked up our child at, I remember dropping him off and we had to pick him up in the next 10 minutes. They called us to pick him up. And again, I called Dr. G. I remember calling you, and I read the book. I read Prize. I spent that weekend reading Prize, Parental Rights and Special Education. I also purchased a book that she referenced, and I still have it in my nightstand. I just forgot the title. It is there. I have it next to me because I know that when I talk to parents, I have it open, and if I want to reference something, I go and reference it from that book. And I just remember something, just, like I said, my people perish for the lack of knowledge. When I realized how they were really not doing right by our child, I was very angry. I was livid. And I remember sending them an email saying that do not call us to pick him up anymore. He deserves an education, and you guys have to give it to him. And then eventually I got lawyers involved, but that is a whole different ball game. Now my son goes to a school that's
Mm.
six figures a year that I don't pay a dime for. So this is what you have to do. It is hard. I wish I could say it's easy. It's not. But at the end of the day, when you see the progress your children will make from you advocating for them, for you fighting for them, you love them, you cherish them. And these actions, you're going to look back when these kids get a little bit older. You're going to look back and you're going to say, man, my sweat and tears did not go in vain. It was worth every single sweat, every single cry, every single groaning, every single crawling.
Mm.
Literally, I see my kids and I smile because I know their future is bright and they've already defied a lot of odds. So you just have to keep going.
Wow. I mean, thank you for sharing that. I mean, and I'm sure as people are listening to the story, there are people who thought they knew you and you're hearing this part, of like, wow, she did that, she did that. Wow. You talked about being angry. And it came from knowing that, whoa, my rights are not being. And can you comment a little bit about what you read in that Parental Rights in Special Education? It's a booklet
Yeah.
that parents get, or they're
Mm-hmm.
supposed to get, at
Mm-hmm.
every yearly IEP meeting.
Yes. Yes.
And all your rights are right in there, right? So what
Mm-hmm.
did you
Mm-hmm.
read in there that made you realize, whoa?
I I can't really read. I can't really say word for word, but I do recall, like I said, Matthias was being picked up, and we were picking him up. And Shola and I work from home, so we're like, thinking that they're on our team, right? I was like, if there's an issue, and Shola like, look, I'm not keeping my son in the school. I don't want nothing to happen to my son. He's very territorial about his kids too. So he's like, I don't want nothing to happen to my kids. Like, if something happens, call me, I'll pick them up. And they took advantage of that. So I can honestly say Matthias' kindergarten year, he learned nothing, nothing from that school. Everything he learned was at home
Mm.
through ABA. Nothing, because he was barely there. Also, there was no teacher. The teacher was gone half the year.
Wow.
So they had subs every day. At some point, they started giving my son iPad, and I just so that he could sit down. So you spend the whole day on iPad. I found that out. Literally he was supposed to have a one-on-one aide, and that aide used to be the aide for the classroom. So she was doing two people's jobs. So there's a lot that I read in the book that what my son was supposed to have. He's supposed to have a full day of education. He's supposed to have, he's warranted that. He's supposed to have a one-on-one aid. If he has behavioral issues, they should have been collecting ABC data. They didn't do that. They should have had a behavioral plan. They didn't do that. There was a lot of things that they just simply didn't do according to the book that they should have done. And if they couldn't do it, I remember requesting for an RBT, a registered behavior technician, for him instead of a aide who doesn't have the experience with dealing with behaviors. They fought me on that. And I kind of just say, you know what, forget it. But actually, they shouldn't fight me because based off the data, for the last couple of months that he was in the school, they really should have had an RBT with him so that they can assess and say, okay, well, is this going to work? They have to try everything in the books to
Yeah.
ensure that he propels and he's successful in the year, but they didn't do any of those things. So these are the things that I read in the book, and it was just like a aha moment. And I was like, oh my God, they so one up me here right before my eyes. And we pushed back hard. We pushed back so hard. I think the CPS was literally, and I felt like God did that in a way. Because it's just so ironic. The day I got called, the day CPS came to my house was the very day we actually sat with the director of special services. We sat with the CST. We had a game plan. They were supposed to now, quote unquote, develop a behavioral plan for Matthias in February. Mind you, school starts in September. They were supposed to do all these things. And and I felt like, again, as a Christian woman, I felt like God knew they were not honest. I think they were just gonna just slip through and do the bare minimum. And I felt like the CPS was new, and I felt like God knew me very well. The CPS call was what I needed to really go hard for Matthias. Like that was literally, I remember very vividly writing that email. I still have it on save. I remember sending that email to Dr. G, and Dr. G is like, don't send it. Don't send. I can assure you there was not one cuss word, but that email gathered everybody together and ensured they knew I meant business. Um, but I ended up getting a lawyer. Um, and I know a lot of parents can afford a lawyer. But if you talk to people, like I know someone who spoke with me because she also has a child on the spectrum, and I remember her talking to me and saying, okay, how did I get my child out of district? What should I do? What should I do? And I told her everything what she's supposed to do. And I even went out further and say, hey, if you ever want me to join that call when you're ready, tell me ahead of time. I will be there. And I wish they would tell you no right in front of me. So she ended up going with her husband, and guess what? Her child is out of district, and she didn't have to pay lawyer fees. So I I think people need to understand the resources around them. If you are good, if people know that you're needed, or if they or you need them, people will help you. People on this journey will help you. Like I have a soft spot for children, or just period. I have a soft spot for any kids. So when I see a child going through this journey, not aware, like it broke our heart. There's a child who there's two children who lost their mom, and they're not aware that they lost their mom. It
Mm,
is such, like, I still think about it.
mm,
It's really tough because they're literally on this journey and
mm.
they don't even know, they're in their own world. And it's like you're going through it. And if people just ask questions, if they want to know, there's so many resources out there. You just have to look, and you can't feel defeated. If you're down, you could stay, you could be down for a little bit, but you have to get up. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying you're going to be up all the time. As I was talking to you, my son was knocking on my door. Like after a while, he heard me, he took the hint, and he went downstairs. Like, all right, fine. But like, this is our day to day life.
Yeah.
I'm as real as it get. My husband is real as it get. It is. There are days we are tired. We are exhausted. Like we literally say, man, we really don't have a life because we dedicate. Like now we're introducing swimming. So now I have my daughter's interested in piano. So now I was like, you know what? Let me go find a piano teacher. Whatever their interests are, let's go pique their interests. I'm getting them a bike. They know how to ride scooters. They're gonna learn how to swim. I'm gonna put them in, music school. We're doing everything we can as parents. We're not gonna let the odds defy them. No, no, no. Like they are meant for great things.
That's
They
awesome.
are meant to propel, and they are gonna be like, in like people are gonna look at them and be inspired.
Well, you're already inspiring a lot of people who have been listening. That's why I said going from the place of being overwhelmed to the place where your back was against the wall when you were
Yes.
accused of something that, like you said, God used that as a thing to just say, I need to fight and I need to fight hard. And what I
Mm-hmm.
love is the fact that you stepped into this role of a parent advocate, advocating for your child, but not just for your child, but for others. And that story you just shared about the parents that you probably introduced them to the same books. You made
Mm-hmm.
them read the same things, right? And that's what that is there. If you're listening, I have a plug out to the Partners in Policy Making class. I told Nodetty, I'm like, you must enroll in that program.
I will.
Uh, so Aderanke is on because she knows the goal here is to feel empowered. And
Mm-hmm.
you feel empowered when you've quoted it many a times that people perish for their lack of knowledge. What that means is that you're going through the place of depression. You're going to a
Mm-hmm.
place where you don't feel valued. You feel like, I don't know what I'm talking about. You feel bad for your kids because you can't
Mm-hmm.
help them when
Mm-hmm.
the help is all around you at all times. Yeah, it seems like you guys have thrown a lot of resources towards your children, and
Mm-hmm.
a lot of it is at a personal sacrifice. You talked about,
Mm-hmm.
hey, we're doing this for the children and for the betterment of it. And you know what? That is why I was excited to say, hey, folks, here's someone who founded her own ABA company based in New Jersey. So if you're listening to us outside of New Jersey, I'm sorry. She's not doing that in New Jersey, outside of New Jersey. But this is a company that is really, 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 really will go out of your way. It didn't pay me to say this, but you heard her story. You heard it tonight. I mean, how can you not be moved and encouraged by what they're doing, right? It's going from personal experience to how do we impact the next generation of people. Nobody wants a diagnosis, whether it's diabetes, whether it's cancer, whether it's autism. Nobody wants any type of diagnosis that makes you feel like, oh, my life is going to be different. But when it is, you do what you have to,
Mm-hmm.
right? You get that necessarily. If it's diabetes, they say, watch what you eat. High blood pressure, watch your salt, go exercise. You take that prescription and then you do what you're supposed to do with it. And that's exactly what you're talking about here. I just applaud getting the diagnosis in the same night. Wow. What an amazing, 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 amazing zeal for your children. So, yeah, Matthias and Emmy are blessed to have such an incredible parents. And I know that, so watch out for Shala and Nodetty. You're just seeing her come on and telling her story. She wasn't ready to do it yet, but I I just feel like there's so much what you've shared tonight. Absolutely, yeah, Aderanka, you're laughing because you all know. I'm like, listen, we're none of us want to be out there doing this thing,
Mm-hmm.
but somebody did it for us, and then that's why we're where we are.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And we have a responsibility to pay it forward. And there's somebody
Mm-hmm.
here who's listening to you and is going to be want to reach out to you. I know you guys on social media. How can people reach out to you? Or maybe it's by email or whatever.
Oh yeah. You guys can look at our website at peacecare.com. You can email us at peacecare at peacecare. I could actually put it in the chat.
You can do that too, but I
Yeah.
want you to verbalize it. So at peacecare at
Yes.
peacecare.com.
Easy. Easy.
Easy, right? At peacecare.com, right? Yeah, so check it out at peacecare.com. And you can find information about them, reach out to them. This is a parent, these are parents that are walking the journey. They're having 100% don't have it all together, but they're doing what they can. And they're inviting you to say if you have questions, you're not sure, they will certainly speak to you. Now, the goal here is we want people to be empowered. We're all on the road to becoming advocates, right?
Yeah.
Parent advocate. And for you forever, whether you have a neurotypical child or a child that has special healthcare needs, guess what? You're going to continue to learn. And I can't say that enough. As we were talking, I'm so glad you mentioned portion of scriptures, and I always share one when I do this topic. When I started my goal, the scripture that really, really inspired me was Second Corinthians 1, 3, and 4. And it says, I'm going to read from what they call the Passion Translation. And it says, all praise to God and the Father of my Lord Jesus Christ, for he is the Father of tender mercy and the God of endless comfort. And he always comes alongside us to comfort us in every suffering,
Mm-hmm.
so that we can come alongside those who are in any painful trial. We can bring them the same comfort that God has poured upon us. There are other versions that will say, praise be to God who have all comfort, who gives us the same comfort that we. So the point here is that what we received in support and services and resources, we now have a responsibility to give it to others.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there are parents out there who will be inspired and encouraged and activated, hopefully,
Mm-hmm.
motivated to get up and help their child, you
Yeah.
know? And so as we're rounding up, what is your last parting words to families that are listening to you? Once again, I want to say thank you so much for being here tonight.
Of course. My last parting words is to them is the journey is tough. I don't want to sugarcoat that. As I'm talking to you right now, I'm about to go brew some tea for my kids. The journey is tough. You're gonna make mistakes. Give yourself grace and get back up. That is literally our motto in this home. Get back up. Keep pushing. Keep asking questions. And it's like you're literally sawing away the boulder to get to the light, little
Mm,
by little.
mm,
Keep
mm.
pushing, keep going. Um, you will get discouraged. Some days you're celebrating, some days you feel defeated, but just look at the brighter side. Just look at your child and smile. Like, nope, you're gonna be okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's amazing that you can remind people that, hey, you may fall, but get up quickly. That's what I
Mm-hmm.
love. Get up quickly because you're gonna have hard days, but you're also gonna have good days. And
Yes, absolutely.
that's to be honest with you, that's really life, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
Even
really
until
life.
we get
But
kids. Like,
that's really life. But what's crucial is that we have a faith community,
yeah.
one, and then number two, you have a My Goal community.
Mm-hmm.
I always say that people are all part of our network. You come in and out, and we are all on a journey together. So I'm so, so
Absolutely.
grateful for that. So we're going to be doing part two next month. We'll see who else I'm going to pin to say, hey, don't you want to share? Come share your story. Come talk. Let's do this how advocacy thing because we want to create a community of advocates, parent advocates out there who are advocating not just for their children from the school side. Sometimes it's also even healthcare needs. Whole separate conversation. We can bring
Mhm.
you back and have a whole conversation about that one too. Um, yeah, that would be great. All right, Nife, let's share what's upcoming for us next month. Next week is Awareness Month. This is one of the reasons why we do what we do, because we want people to really know that it's important that they support. So tell us what's happening next month.
Evening, everybody. Thank you for joining today. I also would like to note that the replay of this will be on our YouTube channel. We'll share the link for everybody in the group chat. So first of all, starting off with our biggest event, our one of our biggest events of the year, we have our annual bowl-a-thon, which this year we're converting into a bowl and play. So this year you'll be able to spend time bowling, and the bowling alley also has a full-on arcade. So everybody will have time to spend time bowling, and then everybody will have time to spend time in the arcade. So registration is currently open. We're only 4 weeks away from the event, so register, invite your family, invite your friends, invite your coworkers, your colleagues, everybody. Let's just pack the house so that we can raise awareness and funding for individuals with autism and other intellectual disabilities. You really don't want to miss it. It's going to be a great time. And then we have our oh, this is just a quick explanation. But we already talked about it. We'll have Hot Wheels, Connect Four Hoops, Fast and Furious. Like literally, it's gonna be turned up. And then we have our grant program, which is still open. We're closing it April 30th. So if you know anybody that is in financial need, that just needs a little bit of help, you can share this with them. We have the QR code up there. We also have the link. All the information is on our website for anybody who is interested in applying. And then we have our winter swim meetup April 11th. It'll be our last winter swim meetup. Well, technically it's spring because it's April, but that will be our last one until the summer. So make sure you come. It's a really good way to join community, meet a lot of new people. It's always a really good time. People have so much fun at the winter swim meetup, I'm not gonna lie, so come. And then next month, obviously, with it being Autism Awareness Month, we have a very special two series of Ask the Expert. So we'll have two Ask the Experts next month. First one, we will be talking about taking the walk into adult services, beginning with a few key steps, which we'll talk about on April 12th at 4 p.m. And then the week after that, we will have Brian Mondadori. He will come and talk to us about taking the fear out of estate planning. And I know a lot of us are scared about that. So we're just going to talk about it. He's going to answer some questions for us, and it's going to be a good time. So that'll be April 19th at 4. And then again, let us know your thoughts, suggestions for future sessions. And if you have any questions, you can email us at info@mygoalink.org.
Awesome. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Nife. You see it here. My goal is just to support families facing autism. We try to be very creative. We try to be very informative. Tonight's session, if you didn't, it's worth replay. So Nife said it. It will be on our YouTube. So now that you can go back and look at like, why the heck did I say that for?
Yeah,
You
I probably said some things I probably shouldn't have said, but it's
No, you're great. You are absolutely amazing. And I can't say thank you enough for really, really, really being vulnerable and being honest with folks to see that sometimes people are walking a journey, people who have no idea where you guys are walking in and day out. Sometimes people are judging and they have no idea the journey. I look back to, yeah, when you called me, I'm like, nope, don't send that email because there's a bigger plan and you listened and got your kid out of district, and things have just been amazing from that point on. The people came to respect you, and the resources that you used to pay for that service has
Mhm.
paid itself over. I mean, if you
Literally.
think about how much you're spending out of district, they're spending out of district that you're not paying for, that money
Mhm.
is like whatever. But
Like it's like a dime in a bucket at this point. Yeah.
yeah, and it doesn't have to come to that, but I think in
Mhm.
your case, it required that level of muscle to bring an
Mhm.
external person in because they had crossed the line. I
Mhm.
mean, nobody hears that story when we'll be smiling. It was that atrocious.
Mhm.
So we know that God has a reason for enabling you to get to the place where you did. And so I want to say thank you. Thank you for sharing your story tonight. We come back part two for next month. We will be talking more about this journey and this road to becoming that parent advocate that we all should be.
Yeah.
So on that note, I want to say thank you everyone for being here tonight. Have a fantastic evening, and I hope you'll register for our Bowl and Play for Autism that's coming up on Sunday, April 26th. The resources go to support our families. So if you're listening, we want to see you there. Sponsor support and be a part of making a difference. Thank you so much. Have a great night,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone. Have a good night.
Bye-bye. Good
Bye.
night.